In 1795, three teenage boys found a strange depression in the ground on an island off the coast of Nova Scotia. 230 years later, 6 people are dead, millions of dollars have been spent, and nobody has ever reached the bottom of it. Every single person who has gone looking has found the same thing, the same buried logs, the same strange flooding, the same impossible material that has no business being on this island at all. And the deeper they dig, the older and stranger the mystery gets. In the summer of 1795, a teenager named Daniel McGinnis was exploring the island when he noticed something odd: a circular depression in the ground. And directly above it, hanging from a tree branch, an old wooden tackle block, the kind used for exactly one purpose: lowering something heavy into a hole, carefully, deliberately, on purpose. Someone had been here before him, and they had gone to a lot of trouble to hide something. He came back with 2 friends, Anthony Vaughn and John Smith, and the 3 of them started to dig. What they found made them keep going. At around 10 feet, a platform of logs packed tight into the surrounding clay, not fallen, not natural, placed there. They pulled it up and kept digging. At 20 feet, another platform. At 30 feet, another. The boys eventually ran out of tools and daylight. They walked away from the hole, but none of them ever stopped thinking about what was still down there, waiting. Word got around, slowly at first, then all at once. And in 1803, a businessman named Simeon Linz heard the story and put real money behind a serious excavation, bringing McGinnis and his 2 friends back to finish what they'd started. This time, they went further than 3 boys with shovels ever could. At 40 feet, another log platform, then a layer of charcoal, then a strange layer of ship's putty, and then, at 60 feet, something that made the entire crew stop and stare: a thick, unmistakable bed of coconut fiber. The nearest coconut palm grows over 1,500 miles from this island. There was no explanation for how it got there. Not yet. They kept going. At around 90 feet, the crew hit something even stranger: a flat stone, covered edge to edge in symbols nobody on site could read. It was eventually carried to a language professor at Dalhousie University, who studied it and offered a translation that would echo through the legend for the next 200 years. 40 feet below, 2 million pounds are buried. That night, certain they were close, the exhausted crew climbed out of the pit to rest until morning. They never got the chance to go back down under their own terms. By sunrise, the pit had flooded. Not partially, completely, filled with seawater up to 33 feet, as if something on the other end of that shaft had been waiting for exactly this moment to strike back. Word of the strange, flooding, symbol-covered pit spread across the region and then across the world. By the early 1800s, the theories had multiplied faster than anyone could dig. Pirate gold, buried by Captain Kidd himself. The Knights Templar, hiding a fortune centuries in the making. Marie Antoinette's smuggled jewels, spirited out of France in the chaos of the Revolution, and buried on a remote Canadian island where no one would ever think to look. But here's what actually kept people coming back, generation after generation, long after the wilder theories should have died out. It wasn't the legend, it was the evidence sitting in the ground itself. every single group that dug this pit, separated by decades, with no communication between them, no shared records, nothing but shovels and obsession, found the exact same thing the original three boys had described. The same log platforms, at the same depths, every single time. Something had been engineered into this island by someone for a reason nobody could explain. That much, at least, nobody could deny. 500 feet from the pit, along a quiet stretch of shoreline called Smith's Cove, someone noticed something strange. As the tide pulled out each day, water bubbled up through the sand, not seeping, but pulsing, like the beach itself was breathing. They dug into the sand to find out why. Underneath it, 5 carefully constructed stone drains, engineered with real precision, all angled toward one destination, the original pit, 500 feet away. This wasn't an accident of geology. This was infrastructure. Someone had built an entire underground plumbing system into this beach, designed for one purpose: to make absolutely certain that no one could ever simply dig their way down to whatever was buried at the bottom. In 1861, a new team brought heavier equipment and built a support platform directly over the pit to speed up the work. The platform gave way. Workers fell into the shaft below. And in the chaos of that collapse, something shifted deep underground, because from that moment forward, every single serious attempt at this pit ran into the exact same wall. Massive, sudden, unstoppable flooding. Every time, right around the 90-foot mark. As if the island itself had a memory and knew exactly how deep was too deep. The 1861 collapse claimed the first confirmed life connected to this pit. It would not be the last. By the turn of the century, this was no longer a local curiosity. It had become an obsession that crossed oceans and social classes alike. In 1909, a young lawyer joined a fresh treasure-hunting syndicate, determined to succeed where every previous attempt had failed. He traveled to the island personally. He put his own money into the effort, alongside men who were far wealthier than he was at the time. That young lawyer's name was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Decades later, sitting behind the desk of the President of the United States, with a world war unfolding around him, he was reportedly still requesting updates on new expeditions to this island. Whatever he saw there in 1909 never fully let him go. Through the rest of the 20th century, one group after another took their turn. New equipment, new theories about the flooding, each one more elaborate than the last. New confidence that this attempt finally would be the one that reached the bottom. And every single time, the outcome was identical. Real, tangible progress at shallow depths, and then the same catastrophic flooding at the same 90-foot mark, stopping everyone cold. By the time modern excavation equipment finally arrived on this island, 6 people had died, chasing an answer that had eluded every single person who had ever tried to find it. For 200 years, almost everyone assumed they knew roughly when this had all started. Pirates, most people guessed, sometime in the 1600s or 1700s, burying stolen treasure during the golden age of piracy in the Atlantic. Then, for the first time, someone actually tested the age of that coconut fiber from Smith's Cove. The result placed it somewhere between the years 1260 and 1400. Read that again, slowly. 1260. That's 500 years before Daniel McGinnis ever stumbled onto that depression in the ground in 1795. centuries before Europeans are even officially recorded as having set foot in this part of Canada at all. Someone was standing on this island in the 1200s, and they brought coconut fiber with them, materials sourced from thousands of miles away, in an era when moving anything that distance took extraordinary effort, extraordinary resources, and an extraordinarily specific reason. Nobody has ever explained what that reason was. If that discovery wasn't enough to unsettle everything, historians thought they knew. The wood made it worse. In 2022, researchers pulled a fresh sample from one of the deep shafts near the original pit and sent it away for testing. The result came back. Carbon dated to as early as 1735, 60 years before the official discovery in 1795. Which means the story almost everyone thinks they know. 3 bored teenage boys stumbling onto a random hole in the woods on an ordinary afternoon was never actually the beginning. It was just the moment an already existing secret happened to surface into public view. Someone had been actively building here in secret, decades before those boys ever wandered close enough to notice the tackle block hanging from that tree. And then came the discovery that changed everything about how seriously this mystery had to be taken. Using advanced mineral analysis, researchers examined sediment pulled from the underground water channels, feeding directly into the original pit. What they found? Elemental silver, bound tightly to the clay itself from a source with absolutely no natural explanation anywhere in that island's geology. Then, in 2024, a wood sample recovered from one of the deepest excavation shafts on the entire island came back with the highest silver reading and the 3rd highest gold reading ever measured there in over 200 years of searching. No chest, no coins spilling out onto a table, but a direct, measurable, undeniable chemical signature, proof that something made of gold and silver has been quietly decaying in that exact ground for a very, very long time. And it lines up perfectly, piece by piece, with everything else that had already surfaced. The coconut fiber from the 1200s, the wood from 1735. Now this. The trail doesn't end there. A lead cross recovered near the flood drains, carved in a style some researchers connect directly to the Knights Templar. A coin bearing a Templar cross pulled from close to the original pit. 2 blacksmithing tools, dated to the 1300s, found on the far side of the island. Hard, physical proof that someone was actively forging metal here, centuries before recorded history says anyone was supposed to be present at all. The people native to this land had lived here for thousands of years before European contact ever reached this coastline, and their documented way of life never included quarried stone drainage systems, imported tropical coconut fiber, or iron forged and buried in deliberate engineered layers like this. Which leaves one conclusion. Whoever built this wasn't part of that world, going about their ordinary lives. Someone specific, someone deliberate, someone who arrived from somewhere else entirely, carrying gold, silver, and coconut fiber across an ocean. 500 years before anyone was ever supposed to be standing on this island at all. The deepest chambers of this shaft system have never been reached. Not by the 3 boys in 1795, not by Roosevelt's syndicate in 1909, not by a single expedition in the 2 centuries since. Every attempt, without exception, runs into the exact same flooding, at the exact same depth, guarding the exact same secret. Nobody knows who they were. Nobody knows why they crossed an ocean to bury something on this specific remote island. Nobody knows what is waiting in the part of that pit that no living person has ever touched. The coconut fiber is real. The 1300s wood is real. The gold and silver sitting in that ground right now, tonight, are real. Someone buried something on this island deliberately more than 500 years ago, and the deepest part of it is still down there. Still sealed. Still waiting for someone to finally go deep enough to find out why. What do you think they were hiding? Tell me in the comments. Subscribe, because sooner or later, someone is going to reach the bottom of this.